if you love something, people can see that and they'll buy in. And I just love coffee, and Cups is just a product that's related to it.
Do you think there is a barista in New Zealand that hasn't touched one of your cups?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
So in that 10 years, specialty coffee in the UK just completely exploded. It was like next level. What they were doing in London was amazing. Flat White Cafe had just opened in Soho, and that was the only cafe other than Monmouth that could do a flat white in London. When I went to leave the UK 5 years later, I did a week trip to London just to drink coffee, and I couldn't get around all of the places. And then I had my first roaster fire. I don't wish that upon anybody. And then I heard it. I still can hear it now, and it's like it goes poof. And suddenly there was like a fire in my chaff container. Nightmare fuel. And then the firemen came and they put the hose at the front door, and then they basically coated the place in white powder. And then I was calling my boss and I was in tears and I was like, there's a fire. And then he came sprinting in on his bike.
Do you have a favourite cup of coffee that sort of is in your memory as like the single most iconic cup of coffee that you've ever had?
I think it was coffee that sort of showed me how different coffee can be. I remember people talk about the God shot, and it's sort of like the shot that really changes it for you. And for me, I think it was more an experience. And when it was like an aha, I was like, whoa, okay, this can be really different.
The Kitchen Day podcast is proudly supported by Boring Oat Milk, taking care of the boring detail so you can focus on the important stuff, like your morning coffee. Today on the Kitchen Day podcast, we're joined by someone who has spent her life following her curiosity through the world of coffee. Megan Wyper's journey started at her mum's coffee cart, where she first fell in love with the energy of service and the ritual of coffee. From those early days, she's built a career that's taken her across the world, from New Zealand to Edinburgh and Glasgow, working in some of the most influential coffee spaces, roasting, competing, and teaching people what great coffee really means. When Megan came home to New Zealand, she joined Flight Coffee in Wellington before stepping into a new chapter with Acme Cup Co., a brand she now co-owns with Paddy Kennedy. Together, they've grown Acme from a local favourite into an internationally recognised brand, all while staying true to its roots in design and hospitality. Megan's story is one of intention and evolution, blending her love of travel, coffee, design, branding and strategy into a career that is now entirely her own. She's one of those people who embodies the spirit of modern hospitality, ambitious, creative, and quietly pioneering a new frontier, taking a New Zealand brand and growing it into something that resonates on the world stage. Please welcome Megan Wyper. Megan, what did your morning coffee look like this morning?
I was very lucky. I had coffee delivered to me in bed this morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was just a flat white in bed, which was really nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Who are you drinking? Whose blend was it?
It was actually Supreme's new Christmas summer blend.
Oh, the holiday blend.
Yeah.
What did you think?
It was really delicious.
It's really nice.
Yeah,
eh?
it's really nice.
Yeah, I love the new packaging.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I really like it. It's the colours, and it just feels really like fresh and like summer.
Yeah. I was going to bring some down with me, but I completely forgot. I can see the jealousy in Dom's face at the moment. Like, what? What's
Like,
this?
I have not tasted this
Excuse
blend.
me. Yeah, Jono's looking at me going, bro, come on, man. yeah, it's good though. Eh?
It was really nice. Yeah.
Awesome.
Neat segue there into design and branding.
Yeah.
Because that's something that is very much on your plate as co-owner of Acme Cup Co.
Mm-hmm.
I am, obviously this has been a question that's been burning in my mind for a long time to ask you. Coming from a rich and vast experience making coffee, to training, to roasting, to now designing the cups that the coffee is served in, does the design of a cup change the way a coffee tastes?
Absolutely.
How?
It's like if you have to think about the product that you're using, you're not thinking about what you're being served.
Right.
So we actually don't design our products to sit at the front and to take all the attention. We want our cups to sit in the background and for you to enjoy what you're being served. So if you don't have to think about how to use something, then you're enjoying what you're consuming.
So you're thinking about the aesthetics for the barista and the customer
Yes.
as well? You're
So
taking that into account?
Absolutely. So it's how the barista uses the product. We don't want them to feel like they have to think about using the product too much. So like the interior of the cup is rounded so that when they're pouring in the milk flows around the cup in a direction to help with latte art, to help support that. We don't want the back benches cluttered with 10 different sauces. I remember like when I was a barista, you would have 5 sauces for 5 cups.
Yes, the space use is so essential,
exactly.
right?
And like it's top real estate behind the bar, and we don't want to give that all up to 10 different size sauces for 10 cup sizes.
It's that real battle between user friendliness and speed. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And efficiency is like number one. So like we have 3 sauces for 8 to 9 different cups now. And it's that efficiency behind the bar as well. And then stacking on top of the machine, it's important so that you have warm cups. You don't want them falling down. You just want to be able to unpack the dishwasher, throw them up on top of the machine and then move on. And then when the consumer is using the product, they want to be able to fit their hot finger in, which is like, it's something that you wouldn't even think about. But if you pick up like old style espresso cups, it's like this.
Yeah, they're tiny.
The little pinkies out.
I've always wondered if it was just me. If I just had Homer Simpson style fingers, I couldn't shove through there.
No. It's like this delicate little sort of situation. It's like, let's try and make them big enough that you can put your finger in.
Yeah.
But then it's also about trying to get the balance between the handle and the cup shape as well, to make sure that it doesn't feel like it's too big and it's taking over. So it's trying to find that proportion.
I think that's one of the first things I noticed when you and Patty maybe started to take hold of Acme, that you did change. That was one of the things you changed straight away. Was it the handle? I remember you changed the design of the handle and it seemed easier to use.
Yeah, so that was when we actually had to move factories, so we redesigned. That was actually just before me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so we can take that part out.
I love just in that short start, the way that you speak about coffee, conveys 2 things to me. One, immense experience. Like you have clearly been doing this a long time. I'm talking about making coffee, understanding coffee, serving coffee, and also the excitement and the passion that you have for this product is so visible.
Yeah.
There's so much to talk about, and I'd love to unpack this whole story. But take us way back. Can you remember your first dabble in coffee? What did that look like?
My parents used to do road trips and on motorbikes around the North and South Island when I was a kid, probably like preteen, 10, 12. And they saw this coffee cart in Nelson and they really liked it. So they started talking to the people, and then they took some photos, and then they kind of copied it, but didn't really copy it, I suppose. I don't know. But it was like, there was nothing like it.
Did they have a background in hospo?
No. So my mum has always essentially sort of had jobs like in stores, like sales.
Right.
So
like,
always
she's
service,
always had service.
Yep.
And she's always had like a passion for food and just that general sort of looking after sort of mentality.
Yeah.
And so my dad and my grandfather built the trailer and the coffee cart, and basically it was like you step into it and it's got a bar, and so you can sit at the side of the bar, and mum would have stools that she would put and stuff like that. And so she started making espresso, and she used Robert Harris coffee because everybody understood and knew who Robert Harris was in the Hawke's Bay. So it was the perfect training for her. So she went to Auckland for coffee training, but she served Robert Harris coffee because she wanted to do the best.
Yeah.
And so I would she would do like AMP shows and like little craft markets and things like that.
So it was mobile, it was always moving around to the events?
Pulled on the back of the car, and she had a 3-group chimbali. Yeah, pretty old school.
Wow, did she love it?
Yeah, I loved it. And she was really good at it. And so I would help mum, but I wasn't allowed to make coffee.
Right.
I wasn't allowed to make coffee until
Mum's rule?
That was mum's rule. Until I liked the taste of coffee.
Right.
She didn't want me serving it if I didn't understand how it tasted.
Yeah.
And I was just really annoyed by that point. So I just had to take money from people, and I wasn't very good with like maths and all that kind of stuff. So it was actually really great for me because I wasn't a student at school. Like I was not very good.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But so I would serve, and I learned from mum how to serve and sort of that anticipation of like serving the coffee, because like when you're serving takeaway coffee, especially at that point, it was still a very new thing.
Yeah.
Like the espresso part of it. But we'd have queues. Like I remember doing the cricket once, and mum sent me down the line with a box of chocolates and goes, go and offer everybody a chocolate standing in the queue and thank them for waiting.
That is beautiful
I know,
service right
right?
there. That's so thoughtful.
Yeah, and everybody was just really excited that we were acknowledging them and giving them a little chocolate. I think they were like chocolate covered coffee beans or something. But it was just a really nice way to start, and it was like seeing mum doing that and having those little tidbits, it kind of gave me the bug for that service and hospitality start.
Do you think it gave you the drive to jump on the machine because mum was saying no?
Oh, absolutely. You always want to do what your parents say you can't do. Mum said, oh, well, let's start you with a mocha. So she made me a mocha. And I remember I crept around the back of the coffee cart and I tipped it out because I didn't like it. But I told her that I drank it because I really wanted to make coffee.
How old would you have been at that time?
I would have been like 14, 15 maybe.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the taste of coffee. And so, yeah, it was quite interesting actually. That was my start. And so last weekend we did the school fair and I took the machine from the office, and mum has a Lamazocco linear as well, so we had like a little 2-group situation and we made coffee together, and it was just really nice. And she was like, the only difference now is you're the boss and I'm the student.
So you eventually got on the machine and you're eventually making coffee.
Well, kinda. It was sort of like she then got given the members lounge at the Hawke's Bay races to make coffee. So she put a machine in there, and then she had one of her friends as the barista who would help her out with the coffee cart sometimes. And I eventually talked that friend into teaching me to make coffee.
Right.
Yes. And then I sort of like from there, my hospitality career kind of started by extending the truth on what I had, the ability that I had to be able to do to get the jobs that I wanted to do.
Classic hospo move.
And what was it that kind of excited you to get in to pursue that career?
I think it just looked like fun, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was just fun, and I just loved the talking to people. And I think my dad's also like an entrepreneur essentially. He had a business, and his goal, like when he'd go to the pub on a Friday night, was to come out paying for his drinks basically with more work.
Right.
He was like sales, like this is, and so I think I've just had that sort of spirit in me. Yeah, and I love it. Like,
also you get to be around people who are doing a job where they get to be the best version of themselves all day long.
Yes.
Because at its core it's just fun, isn't it? It's
exactly.
like just, sometimes service can feel like you're just playing. Yeah. Especially when there are a queue of people who just want a bit of what you have to offer.
Yes.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's so addictive.
And that like when you have a queue and like just trying to power through the orders. I love that.
Get a real rush,
and like
right?
and it's like trying to figure out the puzzle of like the order board on like what's priority, what's not, what could you do 3 things at the same time, that kind of thing, while also talking to people at the same time, like that ultimate skill of multitasking. Yeah. And there's like that real sense of thrill in that.
So you mentioned not being a great student, but now you were doing something where you were excelling. That must have been like really intoxicating to find something at that young age that you were objectively good at. Is that what sort of sparked your introduction into the hospitality career, you know, the next step from the members lounge? Yeah, it was at that, I really enjoyed that, and I could see that I was quite good at it. But I kind of got to a point with schooling that my dad was like, you need to go to Polytech and you need to learn something. You're not going to get bursary at school. Let's like get you into a trade. Let's like get you working. And so I actually went into early childhood because everyone was like, oh, you're really good with kids. And I was like, okay, cool. Yep, cool. I'll just do that. That's fine. So I did that for a year. I trained. And the purpose that I saw in that was it was going to get me out of New Zealand. It was going to get me overseas. Right. I wanted to go traveling. And so I did early childhood nannying for a year. And then I moved, as soon as my course finished, I got my full license and I drove to Auckland. And
like the motorway experience, I tell you, when you've just driven from Hawke's Bay.
Freeing.
When like I got my license in Waipukurau that doesn't even have a set of traffic lights.
It was a bit of an eye-opener.
Was a bit of an eye-opener getting to the motorway. But I was like, this is great. I was just so excited.
Yeah. So you were travelling to Auckland for work?
Yeah, so I drove to Auckland. I lived with my aunt. I got a job as a nanny, private nanny. And then after about 6 months, I was like, I don't really feel like this is for me. It was like there was no people around. You're isolated. You're at home all day. Kids are great, but other people's kids aren't my vibe, and that's okay.
You're kind of
Totally.
missing that personal connection that you'd
Yes.
experienced with your mum in the coffee cart.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I wanted to be around people. And I was like 18 and I was looking after kids and I was going to playgroups and other parents didn't want to interact with me because I was a very young 18-year-old. I was like, I looked like I was 14 or 15 or something. And so people didn't want to interact with me because they didn't understand that I was also a nanny. And it was a really bizarre situation to be in. And so I remember one day I just got the phone book out at the place that I was working, the nanny, when they were sleeping. And I just called a bunch of cafes and I was like, I want to be back in hospitality.
Yep.
And so I just called a bunch of cafes and I got 2 job trials and I went in for both of them. And then I chose the one working for Craig Miller at one of his cafes.
One of the godfathers of coffee.
It was like, that was probably the best thing I did was taking that role and not just another cafe job. It was like, because that was the start of hospitality career for me.
And people will know Miller's Coffee because it's still on Cross Street in Auckland today.
Yes.
And has been for decades.
Yeah, absolutely. Like 80s, 90s. is when we started.
Did he have his roaster in the cafe that you were working
No,
in? It wasn't that.
No, we were on Swanson Street. It's no longer there. It's now apartments. We're on Swanson Street, and it was like, it used to be a nightclub, and so it had 2 windows at the front, and that was it. And we would get all of the business crowd in, and there was 2 staff, and we used to make some sandwiches in the morning.
Yeah.
And we would buy in baked goods. And the best thing that I had from there was an extension of the till system that Mum did, where you had to do it all in your head. Craig was very adamant about hospitality service, that you don't distract yourself with writing things down. Distractions are computers and tills and FPOS machines. So we didn't have any. I think we actually did have an FPOS machine, but it was a cash box. It was like a box that and you just like took the money, put it in the box. You never wrote anything down. Sauces went up, so the barista knew what they were making based on the sauces, and the communication you did as you took the orders. Then you were also doing food at the same time.
Wow.
But the best thing was we got to yell at the customers to come and get their orders from the bar. We didn't do table service.
Was that your first kind of real introduction into some serious coffee background?
Yes.
Because Craig's a very knowledgeable guy.
He's amazing.
He's amazing, right?
And he
you're
takes you under
learning
your
from
arm,
the best.
under his wing,
Yeah.
under his
Yeah.
arm.
Yeah, 100%. And that must have been an amazing experience.
It was,
to be
and it
learning
was
from him.
the first time that I saw the process of roasting coffee, like green coffee through roasted coffee, to come, because it was roasted every morning. We would get our delivery, and so we were using fresh coffee.
Yep.
Like now you don't do that, but you would use coffee that would just come out of the roaster that morning.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that was my first proper experience from that bean to cup.
Why don't you do that now?
You degas, so you just so it just gives you more control when you're making the espresso.
Control over flavour?
The flow. So like when coffee's really fresh, it's full of CO2 gases.
Right.
And so you want them to, but you basically want the coffee to decompress for a little bit, so that when you are extracting the coffee, you've got a bit more control over how it extracts in the flavour. Yeah.
Right.
But back then it was crema was king. So the more crema you had, the fresher the coffee, which actually makes total sense. But now it's about flavour and control over that flavour with the gas in the coffee. So I hope I've got that all right. It's been a long time.
So did Craig let you jump onto the roaster with him? Did he show you any of that process?
No, I'd been having a rough time with a flat in Auckland, and then he said, I've got a spare flat, because he owned the building on Cross Street. I've got a small apartment downstairs. You could come and live there for a month if you wanted to while you sort out your place. So I moved into the basement flat under the roastery, and I didn't move out. I was there for like, I think probably a year, and he just charged me $50 a week.
Dream.
Yeah, he looked after me. So most mornings I'd go up and the roaster would already be roasting, and then I'd pop over the road, and he also had the garages across the road, and I'd pop across there, have a chat with him, and then quite often I'd be late for work because Craig loved the chat. And so we'd end up chatting for a long time, and then I'd be late to the cafe.
Yeah.
So you're really establishing yourself now as a roaster of coffee in your career. Was that an intentional sort of step for you? Had you recognized that coffee was what you wanted to do now as a job?
I think so. I decided that I wanted to try nannying again. My sister was in the UK at this point, doing a gap year, and I was like, I think that's what I want to do. And I was like, I'm going to be doing nannying because it's definitely going to be different in Europe because it's been around longer. And so I'll get paid better and all that kind of stuff. So I actually started applying for nannying jobs. And I used to walk past Flight Centre on my work day every day. And I was waiting for the price to get really low on a flight to the UK. Right. And then it finally got to, I think it was like $600 one way, and I called my aunt who was a travel agent, and I said, right, book me a ticket, I'm ready to go now. And
where was that ticket to?
Just to London. I went straight to London, and so I had a nanny job, but it didn't start until December, and that was in Belgium. And so I hung out in London for 3 months, ran out of money super quick because, I thought $3,000 would be enough to live on for 3 months.
Was that a week?
Yeah,
Did it last you a week? Yeah.
Exactly. And I was like staying in youth hostels, and I got sick of that. And then I found like this amazing old pub, and this guy couldn't knock it down because it was falling down. He couldn't knock it down because it was a historical thing. So I was in like this commune building, basically. There was like 50 of us with one bathroom. It was like, but I could live there week to week, and it was great.
That's the Kiwi OE experience though. Yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I started doing nanny temping work, which was really fun. I got to see lots of London because I would like bounce from like 4-story houses with basement pools to do private swimming lessons, to going to a daycare in an area that wasn't well off. So I was like seeing so much of London, and it was amazing. But it also kind of was bringing me back to nannying's not for me.
Yeah.
But I was like, right, I'm going to go to Belgium. I'll do the job. And then it was amazing being this nanny in Belgium. I went to traveling. They had houses in Portugal and Switzerland and all that kind of stuff. And it was really fun. And the kids were a bit older, so they were at school. So I had lots of free time. And I found myself going to cafes all the time because it's almost like it was like my community space.
Right.
And there was like this one cafe that I loved because it had a big shared table. And everybody would sit at the same table, and they'd have jams and things on the middle of the table. So you'd order a bread basket and a coffee, and then everybody would just communicate to each other by just asking for jams and stuff. So even though I didn't speak French fluently or Flemish fluently, there was like this common language. We'd sit in a cafe and we'd read the paper, and it was just really, really nice. And then I realized after 18 months, I was like, I want to go to hospitality. I want to go back into, this is actually what I want to do. I really miss this.
What was if you look back, what's the comparison between what you were working with, or working in New Zealand compared to what you saw over in Europe? What were the cafes like?
I think the main thing that I noticed that coffee was terrible.
Where in
Europe?
Yeah. In Europe.
And everybody kept going on about how amazing coffee is in Europe. And I was like, guys, are you tasting this? Like, this isn't good coffee. Like,
so even at that stage, we were still doing far superior coffee.
Oh, absolutely. New Zealand understood how to texture milk and serve a flat white, and you could taste the coffee, whereas you'd be served like some milky, too hot, you'd have to wait half an hour for it to cool down type situation. And quite often it came out of an automatic machine.
Yeah.
Right.
And so like, I was like, I could do this, but way better. And like, I think I have a lot of that New Zealand confidence of like, I'm just going to give it a go and do it. And I'd been to Scotland for the weekend because I didn't actually have a working visa for Europe. I used to go back to the UK every 3 months and stamp my passport and go back again.
Handy.
So I used to go to lots of different areas around the UK, and I went to Glasgow for a weekend, and I was like, oh, I really like Scotland. It's a really nice place. And so I ended up in Edinburgh. And I walked around just handing out my CV, talking to people.
Yeah. And
the cafe that attracted me in that situation was this place called Black Medicine. And it was just a really fun vibe. And the coffee was decent-ish. They had a Scottish guy who'd been working in Australia who thought he knew everything about coffee. And he he did to a point, but the coffee was actually good. It was illy. So it was like roasted 3 years prior to them serving it. Came in these big gas canister things.
Yes, quite well degassed.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I really liked the experience and how much fun the staff were having there. So I got myself a job there. And so that was sort of like, okay, cool, this is what I'm doing. Yeah. Like that was the start for me. And it's sort of like nannying's not for me. I'd finally come to the realization. But coffee was where I wanted to be. Yeah. So that was the start for me in the UK.
And did you end up roasting at Black Medicine?
No, so it was just a cafe. It was a student cafe. And Edinburgh is a sort of city that when everybody's like, the festival, wait until the festival comes. It's so good. Nothing happens like for 9 months of the year, then the festival happens and it's crazy.
Sort of similar to World of Verbal Arts.
Yeah.
I think there are some parallels.
I think the World of Verbal Arts is a little bit smaller in comparison to the Edinburgh Festival.
But it was like, you'd have queues out the door and you would work like insane hours and it was just really fun. And the environment was really like it was just a really young group of us and we just all hung out. Yeah. And it was like that, finding your people. And I think hospitality attracts like my people.
Yeah,
and
like-minded people, right? Yeah. And you're all kind of
geeking out about coffee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, while I was there was this girl, Maggie, who was working for this other little cafe over the other side of town, and they had a small shop roaster and it was a little 5 kilo and she was doing part-time. So she was working the 2 jobs. And I was like, I want to work there. That's where I want to work, because it was run by a Kiwi and a Chilean guy, and they were doing flat whites and a little bit of latte art, and they had like this real, like, I was like, oh, that's my familiar. That's what I really want to do. Mm-hmm. And so I slowly started taking over her job. So I was working part-time there and full-time at Black Medicine, and they were just fitting me in where they could until something full-time became available. And so then I went full-time, and that was artisan roast, and that was sort of where it was like 2008 or 9, I think. And it was like, it was different to everybody. It was sort of like, I'm waffling now, but it's sort of like that new specialty coffee. It was different and people could see the difference. So it was like, it was like a tiny little shop. They had a 5 kilo roaster, and then you walked through the back and it was a seating area. We didn't have a bar because the owners wanted to make the space feel like it was like your living room, because they understood that specialty coffee, or what they were doing, was different to what was already there. They wanted to create an experience that was welcoming, that you didn't feel intimidated by, because specialty coffee does and has had that reputation of being like really intimidating. Yeah. So we wanted to create an environment that wasn't like that. So we had a bar up across the wall, and the machine was totally visible. So customers would come in and they could see you doing everything. So we weren't hiding anything from the customer.
So specialty coffee was different. So specialty coffee as opposed to what?
Just everyday coffee.
Everyday coffee.
Can you explain the difference there, Meg, just so, because there'll be some people that are listening that won't really understand that.
Yeah, so traditionally specialty coffee was anything graded above 80 points in the SCA cupping form. And then you have commodity coffee, which is lower. Basically everything we use in New Zealand is specialty coffee, and it always has been, to an extent. Whereas in Europe, you have Euro coffee, like €1 coffee, like where you stand at a bar and you throw back your espresso and it's just coffee. Yeah. And then you have specialty coffee, and they're perceived as very different from each other.
In Europe, the perception's quite clear.
Yes, because specialty coffee is newer, and it's not just standing at a bar having that quick little espresso, or sitting outside on a terrace in Paris kind of thing.
So what is it then? For
me, specialty coffee is an experience that the coffee is at the front of the service, and it is the priority of what you're doing. Right. Everything else behind it, like your baked goods and stuff, is secondary. Now everything's at the front.
Right.
But in the early days of specialty coffee, it was very much at the coffee was the front runner. Yeah. Like that's what you were doing.
So to try and illustrate that in my mind, so specialty coffee as opposed to everyday coffee or commodity coffee would be where you would order a specific blend from a specific country that's been roasted in a specific way. You'd have it served to you in a specific format, and then you'd sip it and think about it, and it's very sort of, it's your entire focus, whereas commodity coffee is like your flat white that you'd order with breakfast.
Yeah,
breakfast
it's just the coffee. Whereas specialty coffee, I like to think about it as in you are highlighting the work that the farmer has put into the coffee. So you are just the custodian, essentially, of the beans that you've been given from the farmer. That's how I like to look at it. It's sort of because there's so much that goes into the background before the coffee even reaches the barista. And like how it's grown, the country, the characteristics, the process that goes to get the cherry, to get the bean from the cherry, all of that tells an amazing story about where that coffee's come from. And our job as a barista is to do the best job that we possibly can to showcase that coffee.
The Kitchen Day podcast is proudly supported by Upstock. So much of our industry runs on good vibes. But there are corners of our industry that will only thrive with the help of smart tech, and that's Upstock. If you buy or sell wholesale, Upstock is a game changer for your business. It has all of your invoicing, ordering, payments, and logistics in one place. You are going to save hours in your day. To find out more, head to upstock.app. So did you have a really clear understanding that that's what they were doing at Artisan? Was it you're still in Edinburgh?
I was still in Edinburgh, yeah. They were just having fun at doing it.
Yeah.
And they were trying to break down the barriers as to what they were doing, trying to make it feel as accessible as possible. Like the flavour notes. So we used to have a board and we had 5 single origins and we would taste them and then we'd write flavour notes. And one of the owners, Michael, is from Dunedin. He's a very eccentric Kiwi. And he ran that and put that place together on a shoestring. A lot of duct tape was involved. The roaster was like barely holding together with duct tape because nobody knew what we were doing. So we could nobody wanted to touch us because they were worried that if they did something wrong to the roaster or the gas or whatever, that they would be into trouble. So we were getting away. Like, I cannot believe how that roaster was put together. And but we would write flavour notes and they wouldn't be like, chocolate, medium body, all of that. It would be like sucking, this coffee tastes like you would be sucking a firework through a Shetland islander's gumboot. Wow. So it was kind of that was one that always stood out to me. It was like this Indonesian coffee, and it was Mandalings, and it was like the majority of our blend, one of our blends, but we also sold it as a single origin. And if you think of a Sumatran Indonesian coffee, that's sort of flavour note that you would imagine if you roasted it like we roasted it. So it was like, it was just really fun, and it was sort of taking away the intimidation of specialty coffee.
Yeah, I really like that. It reminds me, I spent a summer working at a winery on Waiheke Island, and the wine list was extensive, but they ended up commissioning a poet who also really liked wine to come in and write the flavour notes, and every tasting was just a poetic line that actually didn't have any descriptors in it at all. It just conveyed a feeling.
Yes.
And we sold so much wine when we changed the wine list because people immediately connected to the feeling and therefore ordered the wine as opposed to citrus, acid,
Because that's what it is. You're right. You're conveying a feeling of that experience and what you're drinking, because we can taste those notes because we taste coffee every day and we understand what we're drinking, but the consumer doesn't necessarily, and it's trying to take that relatability to try and get them to.
And like you said back before, it feels quite intimidating, doesn't it? Walking into a specialty coffee store, do I belong here?
Yeah.
So, if you're trying to relate to the customer. Exactly.
It's sort of like we understand what a cafe is and what a cafe does, but when they're doing something that's slightly different, it's intimidating because you're like, I know this space, I understand this space, but I don't understand this part of it. And if the barista is like, it's a bit standoffish or is trying to be really cool at what they're doing, that's fine. That's whatever they want to do. But it's also very intimidating in that service space.
Yeah, absolutely.
That barista, that hipster barista stereotype, it was quite enduring for a long time. Was that something? Tell me about your take on that.
I think it was like I said, it was like the cafe space. We understand that space. But then this person who was so excited about specialty coffee behind the bar, they wanted to give you all the information they possibly could. It really comes off as a lot. And if you don't have a way of conveying it that is in a way that doesn't give them customer information overload, then they're going to take it as being intimidating. And you know, and you work in hospitality, you're just so passionate about what you're doing and the coffee and stuff, and you just want to share all of that knowledge with your customer. The customer doesn't always need that. They just want their flat white in the morning. They don't want to be told about 4 different options of coffee beans. And so people take that as being intimidating and like hipster.
So many parallels with SOMs sometimes, and the best SOMs understand the best way to package up their information is in a way that is immediately deliciously palatable to the diner. Like regardless of how much information they have about it, it's like, what is the most beautiful way I can sell this to this guest that they feel excited about it and not scared of it.
It's like that anticipation and reading the customer and understanding that. And I think because being a barista, especially in that specialty space, when I started, it was very new, and so it was learning how to convey that message to the customer to make them feel comfortable.
It goes back to that basic service. I think you and I have spoken about this, Dom. We've spoken to it about past guests we've had on here, that you've got to be relatable to the customer. They're not there to be intimidated.
No.
They're there to feel welcome. They're there to feel special. They're there to experience something. And when you start to speak down to someone, it really affects that experience that they have.
Yeah. So you're roasting now at Artisan?
Yeah. So I just started turning up on roasting days and just be like, can I help? What are you doing there?
And so when did they eventually hand over the reins? Like, when were you officially roasting?
I think when the business started expanding into wholesale, they started getting wholesale accounts, and the owners, he wanted to travel a bit more, so he stepped back a little bit. And then I was learning to roast with one of the store manager. I just slowly started roasting more and more. And then I had my first roaster fire, which is like I don't wish that upon anybody.
Yeah, those are experience.
What's a roaster? I mean, I can imagine what a roaster fire is, but tell us about your first roaster fire.
This was, we had this tiny little 5 kilo topper, which it's not a great roaster, and it's a cheap roaster. It's a good entry start roaster. So the shop was probably 2 arm widths, my arm widths wide, and it was really long. So we had the coffee roaster, and then we had pipes leading to 2 19-kilo propane bottles sitting in a cupboard behind the roaster. And then we had an exhaust system that had a fan in it to try and draw out the exhaust. Because another fun thing about this experience was when we pulled out a roast, we would have to run and open the front doors of the cafe because the whole place would fill up with smoke because we didn't have ventilation. Again, like I said earlier, nobody wanted to touch us, so we just did what we wanted to do.
Including the authorities by the sounds.
Exactly. So we put this fan in to help draw the smoke out the back of the roaster. And so that was fun. And then I'd been told never turn off the coffee roaster because the drum will warp. So if you cool it off and it's not rotating, because the drum inside the roaster is always turning. So if you turn off a roaster and you stop that, the drum isn't cooling down slow enough and it kind of shrinks and it kind of goes.
Right.
So I'd been told don't turn it off. But when you have a roaster, the fan is connected to the drum normally. That's how they used to work. So when you have a fan and you have a really light thing called chaff that comes off the bean as it's roasting that goes into like a tube, which is like the driest part of the coffee. Right. All you need is one small spark to go into that chaff, and then I heard it. I still can hear it now, and it's like it goes poof, and suddenly there was like a fire in my chaff container, and we had a fan. So the fan and the exhaust system was pulling it out, and I had a customer in the shop because it was like 7 o'clock at night, I think, because we used to open really late because everybody drinks coffee really late. And I had a customer who then opened the bottom of the chaff, which you also shouldn't do, and shoved a fire extinguisher in there. Wow. And then I was like, don't turn off the drum, don't turn off the drum. I had to go and turn the propane off, the gas canisters, so the exhaust was going over the top, basically, through the cupboard where the gas was. It was like... Yeah, it was
nightmare fuel.
It was like,
I imagine your heart's beating a million beats a minute.
I just swore, sorry. It was a lot. And then we had the fire brigade came. They didn't know what was going on. We had tenements living above us, so I had to go and buzz all the tenants above us to tell them, like, we've got a fire, you guys need to get out. And then the firemen came and they put the hose at the front door. And then they basically coated the place in white powder. And then I was calling my boss and I was in tears and I was like, there's a fire. And then he came sprinting in on his bike and had been put out by this point. And then they turned the roaster off and it was all right. It made a lot of noise after that because it would go ka-clunk as it turned.
Yeah.
But that was an initiation but I learnt that you always have a water hose connected to your chaff. So every time I've had an opportunity to install a roaster, I always get water tapped into the chaff so that you just pump it, because it happens. Chaff fires happen all the time.
Pretty common, right?
It's a very common thing, but it's knowing how to fight it.
Yep.
So that was quite an educational experience.
So then you moved back to New Zealand.
Literally trial by fire.
Yeah.
Wow, holy moly.
Exactly, yeah. So that was really like an experience, and a lot of things we started initiating from that point.
Yep.
Like what we needed to do, like we lowered how much gas we had, for an example. It also turned out the fan we'd installed couldn't take temperatures above 25 degrees, so the fan actually melted. So then we had to sort that exhaust. And again, this was just like us figuring it out. Like Michael knew what a roaster was. He knew how to roast coffee. He knew the ins and outs of it. And he just had that Kiwi mindset of like, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do.
Yep.
And that we were just learning because nobody knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
And it was fun at that point too, for that reason.
Yeah.
So when did you come back to New Zealand? And what inspired the move back to New Zealand then?
Artisan Roast wanted to expand the business and they wanted to move into Glasgow. It's a bigger city, bigger population, and they talked me into doing it. So I was moved across to Glasgow and I took that small roaster with me because by that point they had a larger roaster that was doing most of the big batch roasting. And so then I took the wee 5 kilo and I was doing shop roasting again, but just single origin. So I got all the fun coffee. So I got the real specialized coffee and I roasted like twice a week, 3 days a week. It was like the most romantic coffee roasting job. I didn't have to do any production. It was all single origins. I got to dial them in. I got given a list of coffees that I could buy green and I'd be like, oh, that one looks nice. Oh, that one's nice. And I could just shop and choose and I got to do all that sort of
real
nice.
freedom, right?
It was
Awesome.
really nice. But the other side of it was nobody in Glasgow understood what specialty coffee was.
Yep.
Like we were called Artisan Roast. I'd get people walking in asking for a roast dinner.
Right.
Like
Really not.
they really didn't really understand. So it was a really interesting experience because I had to teach people what specialty coffee was to create that customer for us.
And when you were buying those green beans in because you had that freedom, what were you looking for? I mean, what do you look for in a
Just
coffee?
anything that looked delicious.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that one sounds really nice. I had an idea of some of the origins that I preferred. And at the time it was like very like Ethiopian naturally processed coffee that tasted like blueberries. That was like the vibe then. It was like coffees that tasted very different to coffee with basic fermentation processes.
Yeah.
And that was really exciting.
Yeah.
But it was like, I created my coffee menu. It was sort of like a flow chart. So it was like, start here. Do you like milk? Yes. So then you go this way. Oh, do you like a strong coffee? Cool. You want a flat white. So it was teaching people what specialty coffee was and what kind of coffee they liked. So I was trying to anticipate that for customers that they wouldn't necessarily understand what I was doing. So I had to show them in a way that wasn't intimidating.
So were terms like flat white and latte and macchiato new to customers?
They sort of...
As recently as 2008, 2009?
Yes. We had core customers that maybe had travelled a bit and they sort of understood, and then we had people that we converted. And I like to think that it was because of our style of hospitality. We were very like cafes were places where students worked and they would work for a summer or they'd work while they were thing, but we were career baristas that worked there. And I tried to attract people that had a really outgoing personality, because you can teach coffee to people that want to learn and they have a personality, but it's really hard to teach people who already know how to make coffee but don't understand what you're trying to do. And I found that a real barrier. And so I would hire Australians and New Zealanders because they understood what hospitality was that we were trying to do. And then I just taught them to make coffee.
Because they'd seen it at AMP shows with coffee carts. So what drew you back to New Zealand? If you were having such an amazing time in the UK,
Yeah,
because it does sound like an incredible job in Glasgow at Artisan.
Yeah, it was. I was the first specialty coffee roaster in Glasgow, and then 6 months later, Dear Green opened, and Lisa, who owns that business, is doing an incredible job for specialty coffee in Scotland. And it was really at the beginning of things, and I'd also competed in the UK Barista Championships. I saw it as a way for me to learn, to extend myself beyond the bar, because I wanted to be the best barista I could. And the best way to do that is through competitions, because it's a situation that forces you into learning about coffee. If you want to learn about coffee and specialty coffee, generally you have to do really expensive courses, and they're run through other organisations. And for me, that didn't feel accessible. But barista competitions did.
It's also a good way to get into the community, right?
Oh, exactly.
And to talk to like-minded people.
Exactly. And it's also a really good opportunity for baristas and businesses to market themselves too, because it gives them a platform beyond their local community to talk about themselves. More so at the time before there wasn't really social media at this point. And so it was a really good way for everybody to get involved. So I did the UK Barista Champs, and I first did it in Edinburgh, and I was second in Scotland, which was really exciting. So then I got to compete in the UK semi-finals, and then I competed a second year and I won, which was really exciting. And it was between myself and Jonathan Sharp, who started another specialty coffee shop in Scotland called Kilimanjaro, and he did a second cafe called Wellington, which I thought was quite fun.
Wow.
It was also because there was like a Duke of Wellington statue in Edinburgh, which he was right next door to.
Yep.
But he also wanted to attract the Antipodeans into his cafe, so he called it Wellington. And he used Square Mile coffee from London, which was like James Hoffman, who founded that business with his partner, and he was a world barista champ, and his coffee was like what they were doing in London was amazing. Because when I first went to the UK, before I was a nanny, Flat White Cafe had just opened in Soho, which is what Cam from Rich Coffee Roasters is one of the owner, founded Flat White.
Yep.
And I was like, and that was the only cafe other than Monmouth that could do a flat white in London. And I'll give you so when I went to leave the UK 5 years later, I did a week trip to London just to drink coffee, and I couldn't get around all of the places. So in that 10 years, specialty coffee in the UK just completely exploded. It was like next level. And so when I was in Glasgow, I was competing. I was putting myself out there because I knew that I wasn't going to stay at Artisan forever. I knew that there would be more to this. And I got to a point in Glasgow where I was like, I either have to go to London if I want to do something more in my career, or I have to go back to Edinburgh, because Edinburgh was starting to boom within specialty coffee. I didn't really want to do that. And I'd come back to New Zealand for a holiday. And my uncle worked for Southern Hospitality in Hawke's Bay, and he was like, "Oh, there's this guy around the corner that's roasting coffee in his garage. And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll go meet your mate that's roasting coffee." Because I don't know about you guys, but when you work in coffee, people are like, "Oh, my friend around the corner.
You've got to meet this
come
person.
and meet them." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Yeah."
You guys will have so much in common. Won't we?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I went around the corner, and it was Richard from Flat Coffee, and he was roasting. And he goes to me in true Richard fashion, "I'll give you a job when you come back." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Cool. This is really cool." And I went back to Scotland, and Mark and I had been together for about 3 months at this point. And I said, "How would you feel about moving to New Zealand?" And he was like, "Yeah, I could do that." I was like, "Oh, okay." And my flat was coming up for end of lease, and his flat was also coming up for end of lease. And I called up Richard and I said, "Hey, have you got that job?" And he goes, "Oh, yep, I'll give you the job." And I was like, "Okay, great." And in that time, I proposed to Mark, not for a visa, but purely because I was like, this just feels all very right. So I think we got engaged after like almost a year together, lived together, moved to New Zealand. He'd never been to New Zealand. And then I went and started working at Flight, and that's what brought me back to New Zealand. So my uncle, who introduced me to Richard, was my dad's favourite person because he brought me home.
Yeah. And I bet he reminds you about that every Christmas.
Absolutely.
He sees you. Yeah. So were they roasting up in the Bay then, or had they come to Wellington?
They were roasting at the Bay, and when they came to, I moved back after 3 months of them roasting at the hangar, I think. So I came in, I started shown how to use the roaster, started production roasting. I had production roast for years. I'd been doing like this really beautiful fancy version of being a coffee roaster, the dream that everybody likes when they think they're going to be a coffee roaster, just roast beautiful coffees. I suddenly went into production, and they were going off to Worlds because Nick was representing New Zealand at the World Barista Champs. And they said, oh, and also, by the way, you need to roast the coffee for Nick. So here is, and we didn't have Cropster, we didn't have fancy computers. We had like one bean probe and a piece of paper with the temperature times. And I was like, great, cool. So they left, and they go, and then you're going to ship the coffee to Australia for his World Barista Champs. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I can do that. Absolutely. Wow. And then he placed, I think it was 5th or 4th in the world. So that was like a real baptism of fire.
Was it a big change of equipment that you were used to roasting on as well?
It was a roast. It was a 12 kilo Probat. I'd been roasting on a 5 kilo topper, and I'd stepped back a little bit from roasting before I moved back to New Zealand. Yeah, and it was all completely different tools. I was roasting in the hangar, and it was a full run cafe, and so there was a lot going on, and it was just like, cool. So 2 weeks in, I'm roasting coffee for a World Barista Champ.
Wow. I just want to pause right there, and I want you to place us in a World Barista Champ competition, because like, I know they exist. I know that baristas aspire to compete, and I know that this really does take coffee, you know, to the next level. It brings it to this international stage. But what is it actually like to compete? Because now in your role at Acme, you are a massive advocate for progress for baristas for competing, and you sponsor, you know, competitions, and you organize competitions and these excellent events. So you're obviously very passionate about the competition space. What is it like as a competitor? What do you have to do when you get there? Place us in that moment.
It's a lot of work in the months leading up to the Barista Champs, because you have to source your coffee to start. So you have to find the coffee that you want to compete with, that you think is going to place you at the finals. I went into competitions with the idea that it was a career thing for me. It was going to give me a platform for people to see what I was capable of so that I could get better jobs. Winning was just the perk, if that's what was going to happen. Because I never went into it wanting to win. It was more about a career, and I was like, if I win, that would be amazing. But it was just more of a career thing for me. So it was choosing a coffee and then choosing a theme around your routine. And I think the first theme, I really wanted to show that I was also a coffee roaster. So I created a blend of the same coffee, roasted 2 different profiles to blend them together to bring out these flavors that I really liked in the coffee. But I thought I couldn't roast one way to get all of the flavors I wanted. So I 50-50 blend, I think it was. I blended it together and to create that story. So you have the coffee, then you have the theme, and you have to show an understanding that you understand the coffee that you're serving. That's the main thing behind it.
So you're not just making a flat white with beautiful latte art.
No.
At all.
No, the format's changed a lot since I competed. I was sort of like, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like the millennial in coffee. So like, I've done the graph paper work roasting coffee, and I've also used Cropster and coffee roasting equipment. As a barista, I've learnt to dose coffee without scales, and I've also made coffee with scales. So I've done analog and digital.
Right.
You really
are the millennial. That's such a great way to describe it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, I've done both.
You're the sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so coffee competitions back then was you made 4 single shot espressos, 4 single shot cappuccinos, and 4 signature drinks. And you had to show that you understood each component. And if you watch barista routines from 2010 compared to now, the barista routines in 2010, it's 15-minute routine. There was so much silence between serving and making, whereas now, 15 minutes, it's all talking.
It's a real show, right?
It's talking. Yeah, because you're like, you show like why you chose the coffee, how it relates, and you talk about the farming process and the roasting process, and you have to show that you understand every aspect of what you're doing.
Goes back to that specialty that you're just doing for the educational piece.
Yes,
this
exactly.
is why you want to showcase this
and
coffee.
And more connective too, way more connective. It's not so much an isolated kind of pursuit. It's a real bringing people in on the journey.
Yes.
Right.
And so you present this to four sensory judges, then you would have 2 technical judges and a head judge. Now you have a shadow judge, and there's a couple of others as well. I can't remember the top of my head, but it's very similar, but it's much more. And like the level of the baristas that are competing today is incredible. Like Jack Simpson in Australia from Axel Coffee Roasters just won the Worlds, and this is his second time representing Australia, and the last time I think he missed out by like 1 point at Worlds on first place. And this time he won, like clearly won.
How would you become a judge in one of these competitions?
So you volunteer. It's a volunteer thing. So I competed twice, and then I judged, because judging is a really good way to get in front of your peers and to work with them that you wouldn't normally get to work with. Like some of the people that I worked with in London judging at the UK Barista Champs, I'm still friends with them now, and we still work together, and we were all at the beginning of our career, but it was such a great opportunity to work with other people and to learn. Again, it's like when you're a barista behind a machine, that's all you get, unless you open up to more and you start doing these competitions and you start judging and you people network. That's the best way to do it, is through these competitions. You might not like want to compete yourself, but there's opportunities for you backstage and judging as well.
So you're now roasting for Flight here in Wellington.
Yes.
You and Mark both are in Wellington. Tell me about Wellington to Acme. What does that sort of journey look like?
So I was at Flight for 4.5, 5 years as their head roaster and production. And then I got pregnant and I kept roasting. And then basically when I had Ailey, I stepped back and I went part-time. And I just wanted to be a mother for a while. And so I did that for a wee bit. And then I decided I didn't really want to roast coffee as a production roaster anymore. It's sort of like I'd fallen out of love with, because it became very mundane. It was like you'd roast all day and then you would cup all the coffees and then you'd just do that. And I wanted more. I wanted more that people, I think it
Have
goes...
you lost that service connection?
I'd lost that service connection and being in a roastery, because I had always been a shop roaster, and then being in a production in a factory, it's a very different situation. And I think when I was in New Zealand, I did compete and I did judge in New Zealand as well, because again, I wanted to connect with the coffee community in New Zealand. And when you do production, you generally, that's how you get the connection within specialty coffee. And there's so many amazing people in New Zealand doing amazing things in coffee. And it was such an amazing opportunity to judge and to work with those people that I wouldn't normally get to work with. So that was really fun. So I stepped back from roasting, and there was a job that came up at Acme, and Jess and Patty approached me to apply for it. And then we structured the job around, I had daycare and trying to figure out how to go from part-time to full-time suddenly. So we just tried to figure that out, basically.
So Acme was doing the cups and the coffee roasting under the Acme brand at this stage. And Paddy Kennedy, nephew of Jeff Kennedy, who owned Acme. And so what was your first role at Acme?
I was sales support for Acme Cups. So Acme Cups was separate business to the prefab roasting and bakery situation. Acme is like an umbrella brand, and then there's lots of things underneath it. And Cups was one of those brands that were underneath it, and we were quite separate because we were international business. And so it was myself, Jess and Patty working, and I was just sales support. And then after 6 months, the opportunity came up for the sales and marketing manager role. So I applied for it, pitched my case as to why I would be good at this. So at this point, I wasn't really doing anything coffee at all. I was just sales. And I love sales, like having conversations with people. That's, for me, it's just that connection to people. It's got nothing to do with selling a product, because if you love something, people can see that and they'll buy in. And I just love coffee, and Cups is just a product that's related to it.
Do you think there is a barista in New Zealand that hasn't touched one of your cups?
No, definitely not.
So for people who are listening who might not know the prefab Jeff Bridget Acme Cupco connection, tell us a little bit about what that kind of stable looks like in Wellington and how it started. And
so when Jeff and Bridget had Lafare. They used to import cups from this Italian company called ACF, and they were the specialty cup. Like, that was the cup you had. Like, when I was in Scotland sourcing products for the cafe when we were opening, I wanted ACF, but I couldn't afford it. So I had to go with something else because there wasn't many cups that did it. There wasn't many brands that did like a 4 to 5 ounce cup, which was what you serve a flat white in, that 150 ml size. And ACF did. And I used ACF for competing. I used red cups and I borrowed them from a friend to compete with because I was like, I wanted ACF cups. So they used to import them. And when they sold Lafare, they realised that there was lots of things about ACF that they liked, but they also didn't like, that they felt they could do better. So Jeff went and sourced a factory and they put together a cup, and that's what Acme, that's basically how it started. And they just designed, they got rid of all the sauces, because when you bought ACF cups, you had to have the sauces. You couldn't buy cups and sauces separately. There is a lot of ACF cup sauces floating around. So many people
we've still got some up at the factory we're still trying to get rid of. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So there was like things like that they could do better. So they did that. And then Jeff went to London and he went and spoke to Caravan Coffee Roasters, which was founded by a New Zealander, and they became one of our first distributors. So that's in a nutshell. Jeff and Bridget left Lafare, opened up Prefab 5 years later, and they roasted and had the bakery, and then they had lots of other little products that they brought in that they just liked. So like gherkins, if you remember the gherkins, they were amazing. Yeah.
So now you are selling a cup made for coffee, which is a product that you know incredibly well. What did that journey look like to you and Patty sitting down with Bridget and Jeff and saying, we want in? Or is that how that went?
So it was, so Patty and I basically were Acme Cups for the last 8 years. And then we've had support from part-timers or full-time in like an administration role. And through COVID, through COVID, when COVID happened, we were obviously at home. Jeff and Bridget focused on the cafe and the coffee side of the business, and we were sort of left to it. And we'd always wanted to do retail, and retail was hard for us because we did wholesale packaging, so we'd have to rethink how we shipped the cups, basically. And we'd have to get a warehouse on board because we work with 3PL warehouses. So we'd have to do that. So we basically got a theme from Shopify, put together a website. And then when we were allowed out of our homes, we would then go into the office and pack the product ourselves in the warehouse. So we were shipping directly from the warehouse ourselves and packing those smaller orders. So we had to figure out the inventory, how that worked, the sales system, the Shopify back end, and then how to market ourselves as a new product. So I'd been doing marketing to wholesale, which I understand because I was the purchaser of cups prior to that. So I understood how to talk retail.
Right?
Yeah, I understood how to do that. But then going into retail, I've always been really into design, interior design, and I always watch that space a lot because I just love beautiful things. And so for me, it was really exciting because I had an opportunity to learn something new and to also talk to that new market and tell them how amazing specialty coffee is, and how if you are at home and you can't go to your local cafe anymore, get the machine on your bench and have the same experience with the cups that you have at your local. So I ran a campaign that was like, support your local. So it was, if you buy our product, our cups, we'll give a percentage of that sale to your local cafe. So then it was great and people were really into it, and it sort of launched us into that home market through COVID, because people were really into supporting the local as well at that point. But then we had a spreadsheet of like 150 cafes that then we had to contact and give some of them like $5 or some of them a bit more.
Just going back to that transition where you go from employee to employer, what was that like for you? I mean, was that daunting, thinking I now own my own business?
Yeah.
Did you own it by this stage?
No, we didn't own it by that stage. Yeah. So it was, we sort of just took on more of a hands-on role with cups at this point. And then it was maybe 2 years later, my dates are all off, but it was a couple of years later.
COVID does that.
Yeah. And then Jeff and Bridget, we were talking about shares in the business, and then Jeff just said, do you want to buy it? And Patty and I were like, absolutely. We didn't even think about it. And both of us, we work so well together. we both our skills complement each other. We've got a very similar sense of humor, and we just want the best for each other. And so we were just like, yep, let's do this and we'll figure it out. Yep. Yeah. So it was like, it took a long time to get it across the line in the end, just because of banks and financing and all that kind of situation. But we got there in the end. And it's one of the most amazing and generous things that Jeff and Bridget have done for Patty and I, to give us this opportunity to be able to do it.
Kitchen Day is proudly supported by Dropper. Dropper helps you take care of your team with rosters that just make sense. Serve up the perfect roster with Dropper. Well, they'd obviously seen in you a drive and an ambition and a real, I'm just going back to that sort of can-do attitude, like let's give it a go. Yeah. That seems to be a real thread in everything that you've done. So now you guys own Acme Cup Co. That must have felt, having worked in it under Jeff and Bridget for as long as you did, and then suddenly having the reins, that must have felt like you had a tiger by the tail. What was yours and Patty's sort of shared vision for the business at the very start that was different to how it had been?
So we really wanted to continue the legacy. Like, that was really important to us, is to really honour what Jeff and Bridget have built with Acme Cups and to continue the legacy while also trying to find our voice. We're still trying to figure out our voice in all of it. But it was just really exciting. And I'm always like, I'll just figure it out. It annoys the hell out of Mark, because I'm just like, it'll be fine, we'll figure it out. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, you got to have a plan. I'm like, no, it'll be fine, we'll figure it out. And that's what Patty and I are doing. We're figuring it out as we go along. We obviously have an idea of where we want to be and where we want to see the brand and stuff. But at the moment, it's really focusing on systems and our voice within the industry and who we are as company owners and as designers of the product, while also honouring the past as well. That's really important for us.
Well, you're not just cups anymore, are you? You've branched out into different areas.
Yeah, tableware. Yep. Because it's people have been nagging us for years for a plate that complemented the cup that they were serving the coffee on. They wanted a cake plate. But we're also in this, we don't want to just create product for the sake of being able to sell products. We want to create products that are actually possible because it's more sustainable. We don't want like hundreds of different colours and SKUs and everything, because we want to be sustainable. And having lots of different things to us doesn't feel right. It's like that over consumerism. It's a really important thing for us, is to make sure that we have sustainable growth within the business, as well as creating products that don't feel like we're just doing it just to make sales. We're very form and functional design, and that really comes through the whole business of how we operate as well. And
you and Patty can't just do this by yourselves, right? So you must have an amazing team around you to help you and complement you there.
We're really lucky that we've attracted some really skilled people, and people that also share our values and what we're trying to grow as well. And when we purchased the business, we were almost 4 people. We were in the process of hiring when we took over, and we're now 8 people. And it's just so cool to see all these people in our office, and they're all excited about the business as much as we are. And I feel really lucky and fortunate to be in the position that I am, and that I can have these people with us. And I just want to support them and what they want to do as well. It's really important for me that that everybody's happy, and that if there's opportunities, like I've been mentored by amazing employers in the past, and they've supported decisions that I've wanted to do, like compete and stuff, and I want to do that as well for our team.
That's something that I feel like really stands out as a consumer of Acme, both as a wholesale consumer and as a, just a retail consumer. Acme seems like a brand that is really, really, really on the ground in terms of supporting and uplifting baristas. You guys are hugely involved in competitions, you're hugely involved in events and training. That must be a really intentional decision on yours and Patty's part.
Yeah, Acme since the beginning has always been involved in the New Zealand Specialty Coffee Association and events. It's really important for us to help support people who see a career in hospitality and in specialty coffee, because it's such an amazing industry. Why wouldn't you want to be involved?
Totally.
But it's about finding your voice and your path. And I've used events myself to showcase my skill set, and I know and I believe in them so passionately that they work and other people need to do that as well. And it's a really great opportunity that I'm in a position that I can nurture loads of people and give them the support that they need to be able to enter competitions and to do the best that they can do.
So do you think you've taken on that role now of those mentors that you had to help you in your career?
I like to
You're
think
now that for the other people, the next generation coming up?
I like to think that I am that person, but for me, I'm just doing it. It's like I didn't set out with the intention of that. I just wanted to make sure other people had opportunities like I had opportunities. That's all I wanted.
Yep.
Who would you say is really killing it in the coffee scene in Wellington right now, or New Zealand?
Sketchbook is a favourite because all of those people have used the specialty coffee events and competitions to put themselves out there on a platform. And they are now almost going into that new side of specialty coffee cafes where you have your flat white, your really delicious flat white every morning, but then they have another menu that is specialty, and they rotate roasters, and they have specialty drinks, which is a big part of competitions, is you serve a drink that shows that you understand the coffee that you're serving, and they also have that
What
well.
would be an example of a specialty drink?
So I could just speak to one that I used for the barista with the barista comps. So it was, I've actually still got one of them, but they're like these little glass jars with a little lid, and I put like a little marzipan bowl inside it.
Okay.
I filled it with a little bit of compote, and then I served the espresso on it, and then you would shake it, and then you would that was the aroma I was getting while I was roasting coffee, because I used to roast coffee by aroma. Not necessarily just by a computer. So I wanted the judges to understand the process of my coffee. So that's how I did it. But specialty drinks now are like, you could even just have like espresso tonic, which is just espresso and total.
Water.
Yeah. So it's like, it's just another way of showing a coffee beyond the espresso.
Right.
And Sketchbook do that really well.
Do you have a favourite cup of coffee, that sort of is in your memory as like the single most iconic cup of coffee that you've ever had?
I think it was a coffee that sort of showed me how different coffee can be. I remember people talk about the God shot, and it's sort of like the shot that really changes it for you. And for me, I think it was more an experience. And when it was like an aha, I was like, whoa, okay, this can be really different. And I was really lucky when I was learning to roast coffee. Michael from Artisan took myself and him and two others, and we went to Copenhagen, and we did a coffee roasting and coffee introduction course for a week with the Coffee Collective in Denmark. And the Coffee Collective, Klaus, who one of the founders, he is a world barista champ, and there's 3 of them. And they'd never done this course before. My boss talked them into doing it. And we did roasting, we did cupping, we did education around processing of coffee, and I'd never done anything like this before. And then we did all of this, and then we made espresso at the end of the week of the coffee that we'd been roasting, and it all just made complete sense.
Yeah.
I already loved specialty coffee. I knew that it was different, and I loved all of that, but that almost just brought everything together, and that was my moment.
That was your God shot.
Yeah. And that was amazing.
I had I don't have the same coffee palate that either of you have, but I had a really sort of singular moment a couple of years ago for Welly on a Plate. We hosted Rocio Sanchez from Copenhagen for an event here at Loretta. And when Rocio came over, she brought us a gift was a bag of coffee beans from Copenhagen. It was just like really beautiful design, really artistic design. It was fun packaging.
Yeah.
The copy was really smart. And put the coffee through the machine, had an espresso, and I remember tasting it and just like not really knowing what to expect, just thinking, oh, this will be a nice coffee, and was like immediately struck by this sense of like it was one of those coffees that really made you sit up and take notice. It was so different to what I expected. It didn't taste like coffee, but it tasted exactly like coffee. It just was so different to the blend that I'd been drinking, and I pretty much only drank the Supreme blend that we have at work. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, holy moly, coffee can be so incredibly different.
Exactly.
It was literally like fruit salad.
Yes.
And guavas, and I remember there was a few of us who sort of stood around and we had this moment of like, are we having, the way that you would swirl a wine and smell and describe a wine.
You can compare it to a wine or a beer, right?
God, you really can.
People don't care what they're spent. Well, they might care, but they're quite happy to spend money on wine because we understand the process and where it comes from. That, but when it compare it to coffee, that's the hard sell, right? It's try to justify why this coffee costs this much.
Doesn't have the same
like
prestige.
You touched on before,
Yes.
the process, where it's grown, how they treat their farmers, how it's sold, the B Corp, which is a massive thing in coffee now. There's all of these things that are behind that bag.
Yes.
Or behind the barista.
Exactly.
And those are really important to talk into.
Yeah. And that's what the consumer often forgets about, that the coffee isn't just about the coffee that you get on your walk to work or the coffee that you might have at the weekend. It's so much bigger than that and so much more exciting than just that. It's like your experience when you have like a coffee that tastes completely different. I want to have more of those experiences.
100%.
Because it's like Coffee Collective were one of the first that I knew of that served good espresso at the end of a meal. There was like this restaurant culture that you have an espresso at the end of your meal, but quite often that espresso isn't even considered as much as the menu as what the food is. So you have this amazing meal and then you get given an espresso and that's the last thing that's left in your mouth when you leave that restaurant. So it's like, and nobody thinks about that.
So thoughtless,
and the machines were often dirty, like nobody really cared. It wasn't part of the training process. And the Coffee Collective, I knew that they were doing this with restaurants in Copenhagen. They were going in, giving beautiful single origin experiences with espresso, and they were helping the restaurants to do this. And so I was like, that actually makes total sense. And so I started doing that in Glasgow, is going into these higher end restaurants and being like, let's talk about coffee service because it's a really important aspect of what you're doing.
If you could give a listener today who might be listening and thinking, I really enjoy stopping at my local cafe. I really enjoy my flat white or my latte. It's really delicious, and that's kind of where it ends for them. If you could give them some advice or a little insight into something else that they might ask or think about when ordering their coffee there or anywhere else, what would you say?
I would just say go 5 minutes earlier to your local cafe and sit down and drink your coffee. Don't do the takeaway. Like, sit down, enjoy the experience, and really enjoy what that barista has done. Like, and think about what you're drinking, because coffee isn't just about that fix. It's about an overall experience. And cafes are our community hubs and our third spaces, and they don't get enough credit for that. And I think that's something that we're forgetting about. We're sort of taking them for granted. And it's becoming too much about just the coffee and getting a coffee. It's not, we're losing that sense of our community. And it's really important because the barista, when you go all the time or you become regular, they know what you're going to drink. They can anticipate your order before you've got it. They will check in with you in the mornings, like, how's it going? How was your evening? What have you done this week? And they'll engage in that conversation. And sometimes it's the only conversation we might have in a day.
Totally.
And we forget about that part of that experience. And I think it's really important that we give so much more credit to our community spaces and our third space, because it's just not getting what it deserves.
It's almost like coffee is the fire that we gather around. Megan, I'd love to ask, so now as the co-owner of Acme Cups, and having come through the ranks as a barista with that service focus, what does good service look like for you guys at Acme now, for your customers in that space?
Customer service has always been our number one priority at Acme Cups. And I think it comes from that hospitality background, because we're all hospitality people at the start of Acme Cups. And so that's always been our focus. And because we work in international markets more, we do a lot of email communication. Like, we don't actually speak to a lot of our customers until we see them in person at shows and things because of time zones. We have to anticipate the customer through email, and it's a skill. It took me a while to really grasp it. But when you send an email and you're like trying to get an order across the line, it's like, here is your order if you would like to change it. and you have to list you have to try and have a conversation through email and anticipate what that customer's going to need. So sometimes it might be sending 2 different invoices and be like, can you choose which one, or is your shipping address correct? So it's like that real anticipation and that level of customer service. And one of our biggest feedbacks is how great our customer service is with that international market. And I think it is because it is very uniquely a New Zealand way of doing things. In New Zealand, we have an amazing way of service and anticipating people's needs, and just like I keep saying, it's like we just get on and get it done.
It seems nowadays that people are so busy, they just want to be able to pick up a phone or send an email, hey look, I need this sorting, can you sort it? And it's really important when you're in customer service to be able to follow through for the customer. It's just one less thing for them to have to worry about, right?
It's that anticipation and just trying to figure out what they need prior to them actually realizing that that's what they need, and trying to do that through email is a real art. It's a real art, exactly.
So what's on the horizon for you guys at Acme Cup Co now? What's next?
So we're expanding into Europe more. So we've been in the European market for about 10 years, and we sell directly to the European market. So all orders processed in Europe come through the New Zealand inbox, and we deal directly with those customers ourselves. And then we have distributors in other markets that manage the markets for us.
Are you guys the new ACF Cup?
I'd like to think so. But the Italian, we don't actually sell very many cups in Italy. It's like, what's one market we can't really crack?
Yes.
They're very passionate about their own Italian-made products, which is fine. We just want to keep doing what we're doing and supporting the people that want to stay in hospitality. Like, that's really important for us. And like we sponsor events in Europe, like the Barista League, which is actually more of a global event. So it's an accessible competition for people who, it's like low barrier of entry. It's like AeroPress. We don't want baristas, because baristas are often, their earning isn't very high, so they don't have the income to be able to support growth themselves. So they need support from their company, whereas these events, they don't require extra funding and extra support from businesses. Their barista can access them themselves, and that's really important for us. So we sponsor these sorts of events so we can do that. So but we just want to keep doing what we're doing, having fun. That was one thing that Jeff always said, is have fun. Like, what is the point of doing something if you're not having fun?
And it's amazing to listen to all the support that you're giving to the industry, Meg, the support you're giving to people who you work with, and your own business. But what are you doing to look after yourself? What do you do in your downtime? What's something that helps you reset?
Gardening.
Yeah?
They talk a lot about putting your feet on the ground. Earthing or grounding? Yes.
Grounding.
I don't really understand what it means, but I just feel like it's just standing on grass. And so I like to do that. But I love to travel, and I'm in such a fortunate position that I can take my family with me, which, like, somebody said, how do you know you made it? I'm like, I can do the travel and not think about it. It's like I can do the things and it's not necessarily a concern, and that's what makes me happy.
So where's next on the list?
Where's Acme taking you next?
I'm going to Korea on the 1st of December for the World AeroPress Championships. And I've been fortunate enough, I'm judging, which is really exciting.
Wow.
Yeah, and the AeroPress is like, you taste coffee and you understand the AeroPress. You were one of our judges at the Wellington one, in Aotearoa, and you just pointed a cup that you like the taste of.
So it was, being a judge at that competition was so intoxicating. It was so much fun. I think it was because there were moments where I was standing back and I was like, this feels like I've snuck into the best party in Wellington.
Right.
But also because it was so well organised, so well done, because I know that was all you. And some of the Acme team too. Yes, the Acme team too. But the collective sense of excitement for coffee, like I would just be surrounded by people like absolutely fizzing out about tasting notes and coffee and
they're very passionate people, aren't they?
And processes, and then watching everybody get up on stage round after round and the way that they would set up their stations. And like I read something the other day that was like, we just, we life is about just giving a damn about things. Like just give a damn about give a damn about your health, give a damn about your family, give a damn about your, just what else are we here for if we don't care about things? And I loved seeing how much these people were just giving a damn about the coffee, you know, and the water,
Yes.
and where they put their cup, and the brewing and the blooming and then the pouring and the tasting. And it was so like immersive to be in this community, because I don't come from I've in service, I've always been sort of coffee adjacent. It's always been an offering of the many sort of offerings that you offer your guests, but I've never been inside that world. And I've always sort of stood back and really admired baristas, because the best ones are like magicians, because, you know, I'm not a barista. I cover breaks for the baristas when they step out.
Well, your
And I
coffee's
just,
pretty good, Dom.
well,
Come
I
on.
just really hope no one orders a milky coffee, because my milk. And the other day, I asked Benoit, our barista, our incredible barista, I asked him, why does my plant milk always look like a bubble bath? And he said, because plant milk will exaggerate your mistakes. And
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
That's
Such
really
a beautiful
good.
way of describing it.
So, I mean, you've got a lot of experience with competitions, Meg. So I guess, could you give any advice to up-and-coming baristas, maybe like Benoit? How could they, get the confidence to take that leap, to just, you know, I want to be in that competition? How can they go about it?
You just have to be comfortable with putting yourself out there. Like, we have this conversation. So I'm on the board of the New Zealand Specialty Coffee Association, and I have been for the last 7 years. And one of our big focuses is events and getting people to events. And we have so many conversations about how to get baristas to compete, because we're in an age of social media now, and baristas see the world baristas and the people competing at world level, and they're like, well, I can't do that. And it's like, well, it's not about that. They have been competing for years to get to that point. You've just got to start. And lots of local events like latte art throwdowns is a good way to put yourself out there without having to present. You're just doing something in front of people. And I think being a barista, we do often hide behind the machine a little bit. And because we don't necessarily do table service sometimes, we've actually got to put ourselves out there. And you've just got to make yourself uncomfortable, because that's when you make the best moments. It's when you're uncomfortable and you've got to figure it out.
Yep.
And you just do it.
Even the professionals were beginners
Yeah.
at some
Yeah.
stage.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
always easy to forget that, but
There
it's
is
true.
like competitors who have been competing for years and to get to worlds, and it's taken them like years. Like I remember Dale Harris, he was a UK barista champ and he got runner up, and I fortunate enough that I got to compete against him in the UK semi-finals, but he competed for years before he won the UK barista champ. And I'm like 5-6 years, and he would always place in the top 6. He never broke it, and then he broke it and he won, and then that same year he went on to win worlds. And it was just like, and I remember seeing him like a year after he won when I started traveling with Acme, and I was in Amsterdam at the World Coffee Show, and I saw him and I hugged him, and I was like, I'm so happy to see that you finally, and I was in tears, and I was like, I was so happy for you that you finally got what you've been working so hard towards. And he's now doing amazing things with his own coffee brand and things, and he's just a wonderful person. And there's like the Canadian champion Ben Putt is another amazing person who has been to the world finals countless times, and he's still waiting to crack that first place. He just got 3rd at Worlds, and he's doing amazing things as well. And they're all just like these really lovely people who like are helping everybody as well as themselves, and so supportive.
I think that's a really important point that you make, being supportive, right?
Yeah.
You look at your journey through hospitality. We've just talked about it for the last hour and a bit, right? But, you know, everybody looks at you and Paddy and they see this amazing business that you have helped create and mould and like Dom just said, what's next for Acme, but they don't talk about the fires you had. They don't talk about the hostel that you were living in. They don't talk about the money that you ran out of in London.
Yeah.
They don't look at the journey. They're just looking at the end product. So it's really important for baristas or aspiring hospitality workers to, you know, just not look at the end product. It's about that journey.
You've got good things take time, and we forget that. We're always in such a hurry, but you really have to slow down, because good things do take time.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like I said, you have to put yourself out there. You have to make yourself feel uncomfortable, because what is it? Diamonds are created under pressure, and that's the same with this industry as well. You really have to try and just do it. Like, you just have to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
A question we ask all of our guests on the way out of these chats is, where's your next reservation in Wellington? Do you have something coming up?
Oh.
Where are you going?
I keep wanting to put a reservation into Rita, because that
Oh, you've never been?
No, I've been.
Oh, you've been.
But I want to keep going because it's just the full experience. It's like I feel like I'm sitting in Paul's in his
Truly.
living room.
Truly.
Like it's just It's magical. And I keep meaning to do it, but I haven't done it again.
Yeah.
Well, maybe today can be today can be the catalyst. Megan, this has been an incredible chat. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I know you have so much on your plate at the moment, and with all this incredible travel and expansion on the horizon, like you and Patty are doing an incredible job at Acme Cups. We love them. We just got the whole new range.
I know, that was so cool.
The green ones, and they're so beautiful. And can I just say also incredible customer service from you guys when I completely mucked up that order too. So thank you so much. But this has been a really wonderful conversation, especially because you're a real leader in the coffee space, and the work that you're doing to uplift not just the service community, but baristas in particular, is so admirable. And thank you so much, because it all just helps to validate our industry and uplift our industry in a way that it's really not being done across the board for so long. It has been a pleasure to sit and chat coffee with you. I'm really looking forward to having a coffee with you after this. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
No, thank you so much for the time as well for me. This is amazing.
The Kitchen Day podcast is recorded and produced by John Otaka at Empire Films. We film here at Loretta, where we get to hear incredible stories from some of New Zealand's most talented front of house professionals. If you enjoyed today's conversation and you know somebody else who might like to hear it too, I would love it if you would share it with them, or better yet, hit subscribe. It's a little thing like that helps us to continue to bring these stories to you in season 2 and beyond. Thank you so much for listening today. Have a great service.